Grief has many faces, but few films capture it as raw and human as Lola by Brillante Mendoza. It's not just about loss, but about how ordinary people carry the weight of tragedy in extraordinary ways. In this story, we follow two grandmothers from opposite sides of a single crime. One mourning the loss of her grandson, the other desperately trying to save her own from prison. Through their struggles, Mendoza takes us to the rain-soaked streets of Manila, where love, poverty, and resilience collide in heartbreaking ways. Lola is a quiet film, but it leaves a loud echo. It's not about spectacular twists. It's about dignity, survival, and the strength of the human spirit. And it asks us a haunting question. What would you do if tragedy demanded more from you than you could give? Today, we'll try to answer that. Let's talk about Lola. Let me tell you the story. The film begins in the middle of a storm. We see Lola Sepa, a frail grandmother struggling against the wind and rain to light a candle for her grandson who was murdered over something as trivial as a mobile phone.
Bata, ano ginagawa niyo dyan? Tito ko ang sinaksak dito kahapon eh. Tito mo ba?
That opening already sets the tone. In this world, grief is not clean or cinematic. It's messy, harsh, and relentless, much like the rain that never seems to stop pouring. From there, the film introduces us to the harsh realities of the Philippine justice system. Unlike in many countries, a case cannot proceed without a formal complaint. And so, the weight of justice, or the lack of it, falls squarely on Lola Sepa's tired shoulders. On the other side of the story, we meet Lola Puring, the grandmother of the accused, Mateo. Her struggle is no less complicated. We see her hustling through the streets of Manila, trying to raise money in any way she can through street vending, borrowing, even begging relatives to pay off the other family and save her grandson from prison.
Tanggapin mo itong munting alaala. At madaragdagan din niya sa mga darating na araw. Sana mapatawad ninyo ang apo ko.
What Lola does so well is show how both women, despite their differences, are crushed by the same system. Poverty dictates their options. Money decides the fate of their loved ones, and dignity is often the first thing sacrificed. By the end, after days of effort, Lola Puring raised enough money. She gives it to Lola Sepa, and in return, Lola Sepa withdraws the case.
50,000 ito. Bilangin ninyo. Wala ba? Lugaw na lang. Lugaw na lang Sandali lang po.
The film doesn't give us a dramatic courtroom showdown or a cathartic ending. Instead, we simply watch as the two women silently walk away from the court, their families drifting apart. No reconciliation, no forgiveness, just the heavy reality that this is how things are. One of the most unshakable themes of Lola is the stark reality of poverty in the Philippines. Brillante Mendoza doesn't romanticize hardship. He forces us to see it, to sit with it. Through Lola Sepa and Lola Puring, we witness how survival in this country is a daily negotiation, not just with hunger and illness, but with systems that leave people experiencing poverty with no real options. The most powerful image of this is when Lola Sepa brings her grandson's coffin to the cemetery. Instead of a proper funeral procession, she and her family load the coffin onto a small wooden boat, paddling through flooded streets just to reach the burial ground. It's a scene that says more than any dialogue could. Poverty strips dignity even from death. This isn't just a cinematic choice. It's a reality many Filipinos live with, especially in a country where flooding is almost seasonal. The ones who suffer most cannot afford safer housing. This single moment becomes the perfect symbol for how poverty defines survival. Even grief must bend to the weight of economic struggle.
Sana po kahit po sana kaunting tulong.
Ay naku, pasensya na po kayo kasi walang-wala rin po kami ngayon eh.
Sige po. Salamat po. Dahil na tayo siguro sa bandaron.
Lola Sepa sells what little she owns, pawns her belongings, and still trudges through ankle-deep water with arthritis just to bury her grandson. Survival in Lola isn't about moving forward. It's about simply not giving up, even when life gives you no chance to rest. At its heart, Lola isn't just about survival. It's also about the difficult choices that come with justice. The film plays us in a moral battlefield where justice is never black and white, but dictated by money, circumstance, and survival. On one side, we have Lola Sepa, grieving the death of her grandson. She carries not just the weight of loss but also the burden of whether or not to push forward with the murder case. On the other side, we see Lola Puring, the accused grandmother, desperately scraping together money to pay off Sepa and free her grandson. Both women are victims of the same system. One robbed of her kin, the other concerned into buying justice with pesos she barely has. What's striking is how Mendoza strips away the theatrics we often see in courtroom dramas. There are no fiery speeches or climatic verdicts. Instead, there's a quiet transaction, handing over the money, followed by Lola Sepa's decision to drop the case. And then both families walk out of the courthouse, going their separate ways, their faces expressionless. It's haunting because it feels real in a country where poverty rules and justice often comes at a price. Lola forces us to confront the painful reality that forgiveness sometimes isn't about grace. It's about survival. For Lola Sepa, it wasn't just about letting go of anger. It was about facing the impossibility of sustaining a lengthy legal battle, about acknowledging that in her world, peace could only come by accepting money in exchange for her grandson's death. That's a truth many Filipinos recognize, making this a theme heavy yet honest. Beyond the questions of survival and justice, Lola is also a film about family, the quiet strength that keeps people going when the world around them feels unrelenting. Lola Sepa and Lola Puring are fighting not for themselves, but for the families they carry on their frail shoulders. Sepa, despite her aching body and limited means, pushes forward to bury her grandson with dignity. Puring, just as exhausted, takes on humiliating and backbreaking tasks to save her grandson from rotting in prison. There's something profoundly moving about how Lola portrays older people as the backbone of their families. At an age where most should be resting, they are instead the ones carrying the heaviest burdens. They walk through flooded streets, haggle for every peso, and sit through endless bureaucracy. Not because they want to, but because love for their family leaves them no choice. And then there's that unforgettable scene of Lola Sepa crossing the flooded streets on a small boat to lay her grandson to rest. It's more than just a striking image. It's a metaphor for the Philippines itself. A country constantly battered by storms, poverty, and systemic failures, yet held afloat by the resilience of ordinary people. Even when grief is unbearable, even when resources are scarce, the will to protect and care for family keeps them moving forward. Lola is remarkable because it takes two women, initially pitted against each other, and shows us their shared humanity. Both are trapped in the same cycle of poverty, both exhausted, both mothers and grandmothers who only want to protect their kin. By the end, when they walk away from the courthouse without a word, it's as if the film is telling us, they're not enemies. They are reflections of each other, two sides of the same struggle, bound by love and survival. Lola is not an easy film to watch, and it's not meant to be. Brillante Mendoza doesn't offer us melodrama or cinematic escape. Instead, he mirrors the quiet, exhausting battles that so many Filipinos fight daily. Through the weather-bitten faces of Lola Sepa and Lola Puring, we see both the crushing weight of poverty and the incredible resilience born out of love for family. What makes the film so devastating and yet so beautiful is its honesty. There are no grand speeches, no neatly tied endings, just rain-soaked streets, aching bodies, and two grandmothers who keep pushing forward in their own ways because they must. In them, we see the essence of humanity, the capacity to endure, to sacrifice, and ultimately, and maybe that's why Lola remains such an essential film. It reminds us that behind every headline about crime, poverty, and natural disaster, there are real people, often the elderly, usually the overlooked, quietly carrying the weight of survival. It's a story of grief, yes, but also of resilience and shared humanity. In the end, Lola asks us not just to watch, but to witness, to recognize the strength of those who keep going when everything else seems to collapse around them, and to remember that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of courage are not loud and dramatic. They are found in the small, weathered hands of grandmothers who refuses to give up.